the kind of mineral resources we have in our country is enough to take care of everybody in that country. But unfortunately, we are not given the free will to make decisions on our own mineral resources. There's always Big Brother who decides. And when you fight and say, no, we are not going to do this, they use the system to stop you. It's either they set you up with the opposition and they'll be supporting the opposition against you from the back, or they cause unnecessary chaos in your country so that you are not able to even govern your own people. Every mining company that is in Sierra Leone today is owned by a foreigner. If it's not the Chinese, it's the American, it's the British. I don't know why we celebrate independence, because we are not free.
These are the words of the First Lady of Sierra Leone, Fatima Bio, and they perfectly encapsulate the story of Africa, from pre-colonization to the present day. But the question remains, how long will this trajectory continue? And is there hope for Africa in the near future? Hi, and welcome to Afriki. Whether you're new here or a returning viewer, it's a pleasure to have you. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. For centuries, Africa has been a land of immense wealth, rich cultures, and untapped potential. But its path to development has been overshadowed by foreign influence, economic exploitation, and deliberate destabilization. While many believe Africa is simply a victim of mismanagement and corruption, the deeper truth reveals a continent shackled by the policies and interventions of Western nations. Today, we will expose how foreign policies, trade agreements, and diplomatic relationships have systematically hindered Africa's growth, how the West has fueled instability, reprogrammed African identity, and how Africans are fighting back for their true liberation. Western foreign policies toward Africa have always been designed to benefit the West at the expense of the continent. Under the guise of development aid, Western nations enforce economic policies that cripple African economies. Institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank impose structural adjustment programs that force African countries to cut social spending, privatize key industries, and open their markets to foreign corporations, making it nearly impossible for local industries to thrive.
I get money in my agency for studies on Africa's potential to process mangoes, but I don't get the money to say, can you help me build the pilot plant? It's $3 million. Can you help me combine your aid from the Dutch government with a processing company where you put part of the money and I build a pilot plant to show President that he can process his mangoes and stuff and put it on Tesco in London? That's what I want to see in the food crisis now. Not just the emergency, but how we combine in public PPP, combine ODA with some private sector venture capital to help these countries link to global markets. So I raise the issue of corporate social responsibility. Because let us face it, today Africa is washed with minerals. That's why the investment is coming. And by the way, in spite of lack of rule of law and democracy, they're coming in to sign contracts with us. But can we have a CSR, a corporate social responsibility, that says to these companies, as Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is trying to do in Liberia with Mittal, to say, hey, we want to know the revenues. We want to see that you don't import chickens to feed your local workers, but you help our farmers produce the chicken. Can we have a common value system with CSR for everybody, whether it's Chinese, American, whatever company?
Trade agreements are another tool of economic control. Africa, despite being rich in resources, is forced into unfair trade deals that undervalue its raw materials while making it difficult for African-made products to compete in Western markets.
Zaire gave up control over their economy to the IMF. This was not a conspiracy. It was just like a known thing, meaning the government of Zaire had to place IMF officials in its government, in the treasury, in control of the economy. And we would shape the economy usually to do two things in the tropics. We would focus on extractive industries. So like, let's get this stuff out of the ground as fast as possible without any benefits accruing to the local population. In fact, we'd often like ruin the environment around them and, you know, make their life miserable. And number two, agriculture stuff. So we would like force them to do this like monocrop kind of industrial scale agriculture, usually of things that they couldn't eat, that they would export to us for our consumption. Palm oil, rubber, tea, coffee, etc. So we would like engineer their society to do this and to be more dependent. In order to do so, this is an export-led model. You want the exports to be cheap, right? So that means you need the currency to be weak. So we would devalue the currency again and again and again and again. And you basically want to like shrink the economy. Like you don't want the government to be like providing any subsidies to its people or like healthcare, education. No. That's only for rich countries. Now, of course, the dictator takes his cut. But beyond that, there's like nothing for the people left over.
Nations that attempt to set their own economic course often face sanctions, diplomatic pressure, or even covert destabilization.
Do you know that there's been about 12 coups in Africa over the past 5 years? And nearly every coup was in a country where Barack Obama built a U.S. military base. No coincidence. America doesn't believe in democracy. Britain doesn't believe in democracy. Amsterdam doesn't believe in democracy. Paris doesn't believe in democracy. They believe in domination. I don't care how many democratically elected presidents you get in Africa. If that democratically elected president doesn't carry out the agenda of the global white power structure, he will be overthrown, whether he was put in office through a vote or not. The white man does not believe in democracy. It's only a weapon that they use to achieve their ends, and they have no problem disposing with their weapon of democracy when it doesn't serve their agenda.
From coups to civil wars, Western interference has been a major driver of instability in Africa. Post-independence leaders like Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, and Muammar Gaddafi sought to break free from Western control and build self-reliant African nations. However, each of them was met with assassinations, coups, or economic sabotage, often orchestrated or backed by Western intelligence agencies like the CIA and MI6. The West has armed rebel groups, fueled ethnic tensions, and supported corrupt leaders who serve their interests. Nations like Libya, Congo, and Sudan have been plunged into chaos because of external interventions disguised as humanitarian efforts.
So post-2021, so this is last year, 2024, we spent $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's funding.
Now, when this problem of Libya started, the African Union, with our chairman, who is here now, this gentleman here, they formed a committee of a few of us. I think we were 6. I was one of them. The whole of the African Union gave that committee a mandate to look for a solution for the Libyan problem. Now, on one occasion, I didn't go that time. These excellencies, this one here, Jacob Zuma, and the others, they entered a plane in Nouakchott in his place. They were going to Libya to mediate. And they were told by NATO to go back. Yes. Said, you go back. Yes, he's here. African presidents on an African mission over African soil were ordered by NATO to go back. That NATO has not allowed them to land in Libya. Contempt. This is contempt.
Even today, Western nations exploit terrorism and instability to justify their continued military presence on African soil.
All knowledge in the world belongs to everybody in the world. Who has programmed our mind in assuming that we cannot run a nation and run it well? The main thing imperialism did, slavery and imperialism, they removed African people from the respectful commentary of history.
Perhaps one of the most insidious weapons used against Africa is the distortion of its history. Colonial education systems erased Africa's grand civilizations, powerful empires, and contributions to global knowledge, replacing them with narratives of primitivism and inferiority.
Many of the noses that you see on Egyptian statues, whether they're in exhibits in museums or in Egypt itself, are gone. The noses are gone. And it's not because they disintegrated. It's because they were removed by either early Christians or the Muslims after 640 AD. Remember, if you change the image of an individual, you no longer have an actual image of a human being if you remove the nose. That was the perception at the time. So that's why 95% approximately of all Egyptian statuettes that had noses no longer do.
Countries.
Religious and cultural shifts were also imposed. Traditional African spiritualities and practices were demonized, replaced by Western ideologies that alienated Africans from their roots. Today, many Africans struggle with self-identity, viewing Western ideals as superior while neglecting their indigenous heritage and wisdom. In recent times, even the religions repackaged for Africans by the Westerners have been proven to be originally African.
Look, the binding, book binding in Ethiopia, the cover, wooden board cover, as you see, everything is made at home. So, this is 15th century manuscripts. Sometimes, it's amazing that, people in the 15th century, were they, aware of color? All the saints, even the Virgin, is painted black. Today, even today, you don't find such paintings in churches, always, a bright color, not black color. So it has to be studied very well, this type of documents. Look, even the evangelist, this is Matthew, and the harag or the decorations, all this,
Through the media, Western propaganda continues to portray Africa as a continent of poverty, disease, and chaos, further conditioning Africans to see themselves as dependent on foreign aid rather than capable of self-determination.
A bold Europe would be a Europe that stops looking at Africa as a humanitarian case. It would be a bold Europe would be a Europe that looks at Africa and sees the possibility of a contiguous zone of prosperity and stability.
Say leave us alone. I also say leave us alone. The West can do, you can go to whatever suicidal path you are putting yourself on, but don't come and tell me what to do with my energy, my resources, and I don't care about your $100 billion of so-called climate aid when you're giving me $100 billion in aid, asking me to sit on $12 trillion worth of oil and gas that's sitting under my soil. That is not a deal.
Despite centuries of oppression, Africa has never stopped fighting back. From the Mau Mau rebellion in Kenya to the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, African resistance has been relentless. Today, movements advocating for economic independence, Pan-African unity, and decolonization of the mind are gaining momentum.
One of the greatest and darkest and dirtiest secrets of Africa today is that majority of our political leaders in Africa and politicians and military juggernauts, were all, agents of the slave trade, and so what can we gain when we are still being ruled by the same people that were willing to sell us for things, but today they sell us for Rolls Royce, for Gucci, for, the same things, these same Africans that believe that European things are more important than African people, and that's why they can't show anything in their entire existence that they've built other than the things that they can acquire and buy and accumulate, So it is time for African people to organize ourselves politically, to remove these people from our politics, so that we as African people can begin for once to take charge of our destiny.
Speaking of taking charge of one's destiny, now we have leaders like Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, who has taken up Sankara's mantle to liberate his country from Western oppression and drive it toward prosperity and self-reliance. Likewise, countries like Rwanda and Ethiopia are taking bold steps to reduce dependency on the West, prioritizing self-sufficiency and homegrown solutions. The rise of digital advancements, young entrepreneurs, and a renewed African identity signals that the continent is awakening from its imposed slumber.
You mentioned actively spreading AIDS?
There was a unit in from SIMA that one of the things was that we went into African countries.
And how was that done exactly?
Through inoculation.
Through vaccines?
Yeah, through vaccines. Pretending to inoculate people and that type of thing.
The idea being to kill black people?
Yeah, to eradicate black people. You must understand the concept was that AIDS was a killer. It was incurable at that point in time, so it was led to believe that if you infected people, it was the quick, non-militaristic approach to eliminate black people.
For Africa to truly break free, a multi-pronged approach is necessary. Economic self-sufficiency. African nations must prioritize industrialization, intra-African trade, and alternative economic alliances such as BRICS. Political unity and strength. The African Union must be empowered to act independently of Western influence and support leaders who prioritize the continent's interests. Educational reform. Africa must rewrite its history books, teaching the truth about its past and fostering a sense of pride in African identity. Cultural revival. A reawakening of African languages, traditions, and values will help break the psychological hold of Western ideologies. Media ownership. Controlling narratives through African-owned media platforms will challenge Western propaganda and reshape Africa's image globally. Security and defense. Africa must reduce reliance on Western military aid and build its own security frameworks to protect its sovereignty.
Pan-Africanism is not a theory. It's the lived solidarity that made the Ethiopians give Nelson Mandela a passport, that made Senegalese civil servants contribute $1 each every month for the liberation of South Africa, that made Zambia take care of us as Zimbabweans and South Africans as we fought for our liberation, that made Uganda take care of the comrades that now run this country. If Pan-Africanism has no active solidarity action, no active affirmative action, the words are meaningless because even the devil can quote scripture.
Africa's story is far from over. Though the West has tried to suppress its growth, the spirit of Africa remains unbroken. The battle for true freedom is not just political or economic. It is a battle for the African mind, identity, and future. The time has come to reclaim Africa's destiny, to rise above the imposed limitations, and to forge a new era of prosperity, pride, and power. The struggle continues, but so does the hope. If you believe in Africa's potential and the need for true independence, like this video, share it, and join the conversation in the comments below. Subscribe for more deep dives into Africa's untold stories. Thank you and goodbye.